everyone, welcome to Babies with Knives. I'm Alice Peng, aka Lala Twiddle, and today we're going to be talking about Infusion by Aegis Creative. And below me, we have Brandon Powers, my co-host.
Howdy, everybody. I am excited to get involved in talking about this. I ran into Guthrie on Facebook. He was putting up in, I think, World of Supers or some other group, some of the stuff that he'd been working on. And so I immediately reached out to him because it just looked interesting to see. And I'm excited to find out more.
I am too. And to our special guests, we have Guthrie Ward, lead developer of Infusion. Up over in the upper right-hand corner, no camera today. Hi, Guthrie.
Hello, thank you guys for having me. It's awesome to be here. I hope you guys can understand my accent.
You are very comprehensible. I can totally understand every word. And below him, we have another Brandon today, Brandon Verhalen, and he is the creative director for Infusion. Hey, Brandon.
Glad to be here.
Very glad to have the both of you here. So could you give us an elevator pitch on what Infusion is going to be about?
That's an interesting question. Okay. My vision is I want to create a shared world called the Infusion Creative Universe. And in order to do that, I started creating characters using rule sets from Green Ronin. And a lot of the things that when I started creating the characters didn't quite add up for me. So I started tinkering with the rules, and that's where I came up with Infusion. Now, Infusion is going to be the basis and the only rule book that we put out, for the Infusion Creative Universe.
Well, that sounds really cool. So I heard that there's an interesting story behind how the two of you met on this project and ended up working together. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because I think it has to do with the art that I'm showing our viewers.
Yeah,
sure. Brandon, you want to take that?
Yeah. So I have been working on a project for a long time, and as a side thing, I just thought superhero project later on would be cool. So I just was looking for an artist, which was Robert Nix, great artist, has done quite a few comics and some other things, and he had a price I could afford. So I started just having random heroes that came to mind, different analogs or versions of heroes, and I put them up on my Facebook page and I shared them. And Gus happened to see them, and he was, of course, already working on Infusion, so he hired Robert to start doing art for him. I saw the art, and Robert mentioned, yeah, this guy liked the art, and he's using me too. And I saw the art, and I said, oh, he's making his own game. I've got this art. I don't really want to create the whole game anytime soon, but there's already a game there. So I contacted him. I said, are you writing? He's one of the layout guy. I'm doing the rules. I have some ideas for a story, but I don't like to write. I said, I like to write, but I hate to do rules. Why don't we work? why don't we work together? And oh, you also do layout, which I didn't have anyone who could do. So I said, well, great. And so we kind of talked, and we decided to just kind of partner up. And so he's doing all the hard part that I think is hard work, which is the rules. And it's not that he doesn't write; he gives me some ideas and some stuff. But I'm going to be doing the bulk of the writing for the setting, and that's kind of how our creative universe is coming together. We're definitely sharing the ideas, but the bulk of, I think, the story will be by me with all of his lead on the actual vision for the whole universe.
That's awesome. Now, can you guys tell us a little bit about the setting that you're working on, this shared world?
I can definitely share some of the ideas. We have quite a bit of the idea, but we haven't got it so that we want to say this is exactly it yet. So, how much do you want me to share, Gus?
I'll share a bit. Okay.
You go ahead.
The biggest thing I think that's going to be fantastic, is that it's going to be a shared universe, and there's going to be some licensing options, which I'm hoping to work out. So, say for instance, you, Brandon, or you guys want to come around and say, "Oh, listen, I like your universe. Can I publish something in your universe?" And I want to create a license that allows you to, in canon, to create your own comic books that you own, the characters that you own, to be published in our universe and interact with each other. And that's the premise of the Infusion Creative Universe.
As far as the setting, the story goes, how much do you want me to share of that, Gus?
We've still got a lot to write and a lot of background, so you can share quite a bit.
Well, I think I'll start off with sort of the World War II era. I won't give everything about the past, how it all comes about, but the basic is the heroes in this world exist not because they're mutants. I'll say that, okay? They have powers, but it's not going to come from your. I'm sure people have done something similar. We're not the first ones to think of it, but they're not going to be mutants per se in general. And they get their powers from let's just say it's almost godlike. Leave it at that. But the some of the characters as they come at this universe there's a thing we're going to call Project Vanguard, and I've mentioned that a little bit already on Facebook, and it's sort of a during World War II when when the Axis powers will field a super powered bad guy, which we're working out the exact details, but they field one. So the U.S. and the Allies are like, what are we going to do? We got all this technology, we can't match this super powered bad guy. They start Project Vanguard looking for other super powered equivalents to fight them, and that's kind of where you'll see the beginning of sort of the modern age of heroes begins with our characters from there on forward, and that's where the Silver Ghost character comes from for me. It's a World War II character in the vein or the style of Captain America, in that he's a patriotic soldier. Him is kind of important to me, that specific one, because he's based on my grandfather, who was a World War II Navy pilot who flew a Corsair. So
My grandfather built airfields for your grandfather then, because he was a CB.
He's a CB. Okay, my grandfather loved your guy. So he got a couple stories where he got shot down or shot up and had a parachute out. So I just did the story where he had to jump out of the airplane and his parachute doesn't open, which in the real world it did, or I wouldn't be here. But he gets scared and wants, doesn't want to fall, and kind of reaches for the sky and finds out he can fly. And he gets some kind of powers. And so he's sort of that Captain America hero in the sense that he's the patriotic soldier, but he's not Captain America the exact same way he got powers or the way he does. It's just that patriotic type of hero. And so that and we're primarily going to tell the story in the modern setting and maybe go back and tell World War II or earlier before that or in the future, but we'll base it in the modern world, and you'll have the heroes are going to be there, and there's going to be driving forces that are kind of competing to get back into this world, and the heroes are kind of like, let's say, a proxy fight between these forces.
I'm currently showing our viewers the Silver Ghost character portrait. Can you tell us a bit about that gun of his?
So Captain America has a shield. I don't want to copy characters. I just so what do I want to do with him? And I want to give him something else. I didn't want him to shoot rays from himself, because so many heroes that can fly and are kind of strong they shoot rays. I want to be a little different. So there's a point in the story where I've kind of put in my head where he's going to run into a crashed spaceship, and he picks up the ray gun from one of the aliens, and he just keeps it with him ever since. So it's kind of those found pieces of tech that becomes part of the character's everyday usage.
That's awesome, because this art that we have in front of us, I didn't know any of this until you just started talking about it, but obviously you see art and you immediately put your own story together for it. I by all means see the fighter pilot, see the World War II. He's got even a pullback to further than World War II, because he looks like a pulp hero with that very strong jaw, leading with his fist. So Flash Gordon and such, Rocketeer kind of vibe, and
Especially
just
with that
looking,
hairstyle.
yeah, looking at the art right there. If I saw that on the comic rack, I'd be like, oh, this is something that looks kind of interesting, looks a little bit different than what I see on a lot of the comic racks. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about Silver Ghost. Some of the all the art that you guys have shown us is absolutely fantastic, but this is one of the most evocative pieces to me.
So every superhero world has some deviation from our real world. There are, like you were mentioning, there's a lot of different origins, and a lot of them that cross over between settings. Can you tell us a little bit about the deviations from our current setting to what your setting would be?
Anything you want to say, Gus?
Yeah. I think it's a lot to do with the gods, okay, especially with the old legends, where we're going to try and integrate all the titans and that, and try and integrate all the pantheons that come from a single source, which is really interesting. And that's the reason why I have Divine, who's basically the granddaughter of Zeus and Odin, okay, which is a really nice combination. But we've also come up with an idea that there's been a compact of the gods where they've kind of left Earth and left the mortal realm to their own devices. But there's also interesting a divide between them, where like the Olympians and that they're more into the divine plane, where the Norse they're more into the physical plane. So we're still working out the details like that, but yeah, it's quite interesting.
That sounds really cool. During a game that I ran, Alice was a daughter of Greek divine powers, and so in Greek mythology, like the realm of the dead is past where the Rock of Gibraltar closes off the Mediterranean Sea and such. And so I had that. Well, what's past that? Well, if you go far enough, that's where America is. And so that's where, like, I forget what the specifics of it were, but like the Titans had been banished to or something like that. And I actually got people who weren't involved in that specific storyline, that they were the other characters around, but that involved in it that way. But it was aimed at Alice's character. And afterwards, they're like, Brandon, that was a really cool, detail to pull out from things that we hear in stories and myths and all, and you grounded it. So I always love seeing that divine come together with the modern day.
So regarding that divinity, are you guys just focusing on Western themed ones like Norse and Greek, or are you guys going to do Aztec, Egyptian, Chinese, Korean, etc.?
We want to include all of them. Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
Because we've also got an idea on how the divinity splits up. Okay, because that also focuses around Atlantis and that kind of stuff, being a really good, far advanced in technology, island. So, and then we'll touch on every aspect of divinity we can, because like I said, we want to tie them all together through the Titans.
Having spent a lot of my life studying Chinese mythology and Chinese lore, I am very interested to see how you guys decide to tie that in, because it is very different than a lot of Western mythologies and all. And there are thousands and thousands of gods in the way that things are believed and such. And there's also the but I think that there's going to be the iconic figures that will probably make an appearance, like Sun Wukong and his party and such. So I'm interested in seeing what happens.
So now that we've talked about the setting a little bit, why don't we talk a little bit about the rules that you guys are playing around with? Gus, when you were talking to us, you were saying that you didn't find the ability to represent the characters the way that you'd want them to in existing systems. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Let me give you a basic rundown of how I came up with what I'm doing. As everyone knows, in 2000, when Wizards of the Coast released Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, and then they released the open game license, everyone was blown away, and everyone jumped on the bandwagon. So I started writing my own rule set, because I wanted an unclassed version. So rules that you weren't bound by a class. So I started designing that. And in my travels, because I started traveling into the UK for a while, I stumbled onto Mutants Masterminds by Green Ronin, and they really did everything that I wanted, and I loved it. So there was a few rules that I didn't quite, gel with, but it was fine. You could work your way around those, and I loved it too. So I abandoned my project. And then a few years ago, when they released the 3rd edition, again, I love the rules. I love the simplicity of the powers and stuff like that. But there was just a few things to me that didn't quite add up when I was doing the point costs. And so I started tinkering with those rules, and I kept on going to the 2nd edition, and I kept on looking at things, and I started looking at Star Wars, the way they did, the D20 version of it. And I just started picking interesting bits and pieces, and I put them together, and I started. But once you change one rule, it snowballs, and then it flies off into the next rule, and that's how I started building Infusion. I was going to release it as just an update document, but because it turned into a lot of different things, I thought, okay, a whole new rule book would, function.
That's awesome. What are some of the things that you've been working with on changing? And also, just as a note, I've got all 3 versions of the D20 Star Wars, at least core books and a couple supplements over there on the shelf. So I'm a fan of that one. I enjoy that the heck out of it.
The most interesting rules that I really liked was how they separated defenses, armor class and the defenses and that kind of stuff in the Star Wars. I like that idea. And then Green Ronin did the same with the 3rd edition of M&M, where they've got all the defenses. And I just simplified that into your basic 4 defenses, which is dodge, fortitude, toughness, and willpower. And that's basically one of the most interesting thing. Other than that was the abilities. So I call them attributes in my version. It's just I simplified that down back to 6, and then I've also moved combat into its own section away from abilities.
What are the changes to combat have so far?
I've just simplified it a little bit. I just got to get my bearings on how I thought everything through. I didn't like the idea of a natural 20 always hitting. I wanted to be skillful, and also a natural 1 always missing. So I've kind of did away with those kind of rules. And then combat is just basically an attack roll. So you attack, you hit or you don't.
So
Awesome.
can you explain what you mean by simplify? Simplify to a lot of different people means a lot of different things. And so if you can give us a little bit of idea on mechanics, besides just the you roll and hit or you don't, are there other changes that you would consider were simplified?
We're still working out on the fine details of it. Like I'm on my final at the moment, but the basics is still you roll your attack bonus. We'll roll your D20 for your attack. You add your attack bonus to it, and if you hit your target, which is a DC against their dodge, and if you hit, you do damage. Then they roll for their toughness. If the toughness succeeds, they either do not do damage or they sustain damage.
So you're saying that there are some comparisons between this and Mutants Masterminds. My question is, are you doing a similar damage system, or have you gone to a more hit point based system?
It will be a very similar system to that. Yes.
Okay, so a bruise based system.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I looked at doing health points. I actually wanted to make it really simple, where a lot of things were. I wanted the world to be dangerous, so you only had a specific amount of health. But it started getting really complicated, and especially with damage. And you wanted to make what bruising damage and lethal damage and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought, let's just keep it simple at the moment. We'll see what happens in the next rule if we do another rule set.
That's awesome. I know that the bruising system is one that for some folks it's controversial. Other people like it a lot. For me, I ran a game of Mutants Masterminds a little while ago, and like they just did this big team attack on one of the big bad guys and just knocked him out in almost no time, and then it was just mop up of the smaller guys. And I could have passed out the hero point. It was Mutants Masterminds 3rd edition. I could have passed out a hero point and made them save, but they'd come together with a beautiful plan and such, and the roles went with it, and I didn't really want to steal that from them, and everybody had a good time anyways. So health points, there can be some problems that people have with that bruising system, but overall I've enjoyed it a whole lot. What about like skills? How are you guys looking at that?
Okay. Skills I've expanded to 30, a base 30. They're all sort of specific, but they're broad enough where you could specialize. I've brought in some specialization rules as well that gives you bonuses if you specialize into something specific. So if you take behavioral science and you specialize in psychology, you get bonuses for that. But you can still use your skill on a broad basis, okay, but not as well.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I know I talked with him because I come from other game systems. When I first found the game system, was like, there's more, and hadn't gotten the rules down quite as well right away. But I realized, like, why can I only attack once? I just was like, it felt very unheroic. So we've kind of played with some options for maybe allowing heroes to have more than one attack with a modifier if they do that without it having to be a power or an ability, to have that sort of like, that 1-2 attack kind of thing, which I played with a couple times, the rules, because it just feels a little more heroic if you're doing more than one straight up combat action each turn, and it speeds up combat a little bit. I'm not sure if we'll go with that in the end. I know I've talked to him about it. We've played a couple times. We're going to see how that works out. So that's something we're kind of playing with to see how that affects the gameplay.
Well, I definitely would love to see a playtest and gameplay of it. If you guys are looking for players, Brandon and I are always interested.
We do have
Awesome.
we do have an adventure I've kind of written up, and we're getting converted over to kind of run as a playtest. So I'll be glad to invite you guys when we get to that part.
Awesome. And-
Ragnarok would also like to show up.
Awesome.
Justice.
Hey, Ragnarok.
I'll find a spot for him.
And if you guys are interested, we would also be willing and, well, we'd love to actually host as BWK and put it up on our upcoming playtest segment. We have a couple companies playtesting some stuff with us that have given us permission to show people. So a playtest segment is going to be launching too.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Yeah, so you guys can give people a little preview, and people will know this is not the final, but give people a little taste of what is to come of it. Really awesome. I'm really looking forward. Go ahead, Brandon.
As to the attacking more than just that one, that's something that the games that I generally bounce around with in superhero are going to be Champions, Mutants Masterminds, and Super's Red. There's other games that I play. I really do like them, and I want to experience more with them, and others that I've just read that I'm waiting to get to the table. But in general, those are the three that I'm always kind of waffling between, because each brings something different to the party. And Hero System, I absolutely love the speed chart. And so therefore your speedster is taking multiple actions rather than they just have, I go and I run around in a circle and I punch everybody, which is the way that other games deal with it. Is like you have to say how you're doing it fast rather than really feeling like you're fast.
His statement of what the top three are for him are also my three go-tos as well. For me also, I want to just say that first, I default to Super's Red a lot because it's really fast to GM. I don't have to stat everything out ahead of time. If people go the opposite direction of where I want them to go and they go and deal with a different villain or a different situation, I can stat things out on my notepad in 3 lines or 4 lines and just go this power, this power, this power, this many dice. And I can do it in 10 seconds or less, so people don't even notice that I don't have a full character sheet for them and just be rolling. So
Awesome. I've never heard of those.
Well,
It's so nice. It's so nice to be in a country where you get these diverse rules. I mean, I grew up with Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons. That was it for me.
well, like we were mentioning, this is part of the goal of Babies with Knives, is to show a lot of people a lot of different systems. Brandon and I have each played well over 200 systems, and it's going to be cresting
Awesome.
300 pretty soon, actually. We have quite a few systems already on the BWK podcast, but we'd love to show you sometime. We love a bunch of these systems, so you're always welcome to come and play with us by all means. Maybe you'll get some ideas on things to integrate into your system. But I do have a question, though. So one of the things about Mutants and Masterminds that a lot of people, some people like, some people find as a struggle, is the preparation for GMing. Some people think that it takes a long time. Some people don't. Have you made any changes?
I'm in the don't category.
Yeah, you and I have a cheat sheet to make it so that it's a don't. But I'm interested in seeing if Guthrie and Brandon have made any adjustments on the back end behind the screen for GMs to streamline it and maybe make it appear more quick to run.
That's a good question. On the rule side of things, especially I know character generation, can take quite a long time. And that's where we want to focus. I want to try and create as many usable characters that can be reused with slight modification, so that people can just plug and play into their campaign very easily. I'm also working on a monsters manual. That's I'm not sure if I'm going to publish it first or afterwards, but it's just going to be everything of characters, all the monsters that you encounter, all the animals that you encounter, everything like that. So just want to see how it goes, though, because as the only main writer on the rules at the moment, it takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would love to have. Sorry, Brendan, you want to go?
No, I was going to say that having a lot of, like, he's doing a lot of prepared, NPC types, creatures, people, characters, whatever, will help a lot in that you can just pick them up if it's the appropriate level. That's a good thing. I find that I've only run a couple of tests so far with some buddies. As we're kind of, I want to get good at it before I try and run for anyone else. I don't want to show off and not look like what I'm doing yet. But I found that, when I went to run for the guys, I just wrote down the couple of pertinent stats that mattered and ignore everything else. And, all they need to know is how hard it is to hurt them, and or if they have an ability, what they're attacking with. And I can write down whatever number I want. I just use the basic rules of, the power level dictates what the max damage and defense they can have. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I can just kind of make up. Just stay consistent. If I write down that they do this damage, it doesn't change in the middle of a combat.
Yeah.
So I don't need all the stats, and having some, and so the prep work isn't too bad. But again, I haven't done a huge full campaign or a even full adventure. It's been more I did a mini one where I just I said, you guys make some characters tonight. We're going to do it from the beginning. That took a little bit of time because they had never done it before either. We went ahead and attacked I said, just like World War II, you're kind of those kind of characters you're going to attack. They got this giant robot they're going to attack the world with. You got to get into the big castles, Dr. Doomy kind of thing going on. And they fought some mooks outside. They fought a couple of guys inside. They didn't really have them fight a big, powerful bad guy yet. It was just kind of keeping it the, what do you call the level of old school kind of heroes? My brain's going blank on me, but the
Golden
pulp heroes.
Age.
Yeah. And so, it really wasn't all that bad. Obviously, it was a little bit difficult, clunky in the combat because I got some things wrong. And so then we went back and I reread the rules again and said, oh, so I did wrong. But it wasn't that bad to prep. I mean, I did the entire prep for the entire game, played the game, including character creation, was for about 2.5 hours for us. Now, it was a very small thing we did, but it wasn't that bad. It does, but reading the rules helps, yes.
Yeah.
And, the way that you just talked about how you prepped that game just kind of on the fly and all you need is a couple numbers. I run Champions, which is many people consider a very, very difficult system. I run Champions on that same kind of method. I run Mutants and Masterminds. By all means, with Mutants and Masterminds, I don't really need to stop the flow with Champions. I'll generally take a 5-minute break because all of a sudden I need to come up with a couple bad guys. So I tell the players, why don't you go take a bathroom break? I quickly jot down just my couple of important details on them, and then I can run the combat. And so all the people who say that you have to prep everything ahead of time and have sheets for it. Now, the funny thing is, D&D, I'm kind of the opposite way, is that, when I'm playing Pathfinder or something, I try to have all my stuff pre-prepped. So you guys, on the modeling scale for this, you actually just addressed it a little bit, but the dealing with the mooks and such, on some superhero games, they try and allow you to model, Mary Jane Parker and Aunt May all the way up to Galactus and things like that. Are you guys doing that same kind of thing? Others have that more narrow band where it's only a certain level of superheroics that they're trying to model.
Oh no, I want you to be able to create any kind of character that you want. It's not just going to be superhero. So I want it to be sci-fi, fantasy, anything.
Interesting.
So anything that you can create, anything that you can come and think of. Yeah.
I think the scale that he's worked on, I've looked in the rules and stuff, could handle anything from, if you want to be the old school guy who like maybe could turn invisible and had no other powers, all the way up, like the Shadow or something, all the way up to Galactus is in there. But I think our focus isn't going to be at those two extremes as much. We'll be more the more, I don't want to say normal, but more expected story. I'll be kind of in that middle range where you've kind of, from like Superman to Captain America kind of range is really more where I think most of our heroes fall in our story writing. Anything more that you can do, but I don't, and the system will handle from the way he's shown it to me, but I don't know that's necessarily gonna be a focus. Not that we can't, just that it's not a focus.
Yeah, in Mutants and Masterminds Second Edition, one of the supplements that I liked the most, I forget the name of it, but it was the one that was saying this is how you play your Conan adventures or your D&D adventures using the Mutants and Masterminds rules, and I
Wasn't
thought
that
that was just so fun and so awesome.
the Masterminds rule book? I think it was really good rule book. I really enjoyed it.
So,
And Warriors and Warlocks, I think it was.
Yes,
Yes,
that's the one,
that's
Warriors
one.
and Warlocks.
yes. So before we close up, we'd like to find out from each of you what is one thing you think people absolutely need to know about Infusion. So why don't we go
Brandon,
with
go.
Chris?
Oh, you're gonna make me go first now.
Yes.
I think the really cool thing is just that you can make whatever you want in the system, and I think to go with that, it's just gonna be the world is gonna be a really I think it's going to be a sandbox world. I think that's kind of the way we want to develop it. It's going to be that world where you can make that hero you want, and you'll be able to explore it. It'll take a while to build that sandbox, but I want that world where your heroes can come in and be any kind of hero you want in any kind of setting. Will eventually be, the total setting will exist for that. It'll take time, but that's kind of my goal for the story side of it.
That's my goal as well. To bring other creators into creating a world where everyone shares in the same kind of stories. So, which is nice.
That's awesome. Is there anything that we've missed that you guys want to talk about on Infusion?
Not really. I don't think so. I'm still developing the rules, fine tuning them. So it's quite a lot of going back, making sure that everything is working. I've picked up a few mistakes already. So, but other than that, Joe, you guys hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you both for coming and joining us and talking about your game. I really love the art. I am very interested in seeing more about this game and the changes between this and other systems that you were inspired by to create the system. And I really look forward to getting to play it maybe at the playtest table very soon. So let's hope for that. So thank you both very much for coming.
you.
Thanks for having us.
That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Have a great day, guys.
Hey Blades! Thank you so much for watching another Babies with Knives video. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Go follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and come join the conversation in our Discord server.
If you want to keep content like this coming, come check out our Patreon and consider subscribing. All links for this is provided in the description below. And remember, come back next time to get honed!